Hi guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome back to Upside Down Books. Today we have so many books to go through. We're doing my December book haul, and you knew it was gonna be big, I knew it was gonna be big, and I didn't realize it was gonna be this big. Non più tra I farfalloni amoroso, notte giorno. So, why is my December book haul so big always? I give my friends and family a wish list of books, all the books, like hundreds of books that I have my eye on that I would like, and I let them choose from that list of stuff to get me, and by the time that all of the presents come in at Christmas, almost all my presents are books, and I end up with so many books to read. It is actually amazing. So I always love Christmas time because of that, and on top of that I have acquired a few books of my own, I think, as well, because, I mean, would we expect any less? So I'm not going to waste any time. We're just going to get straight into it and we're going to whip through the books. I'm pretty sure that the number is somewhere around 30. This is in no particular order other than the order that they're currently precariously stacked just off screen. So let's go. The first book that I have to share with you, it came from a Advent box, subscription box that I got, which was for Burn the Wick. There are links down below for that company if you're interested in it. And that book is Chase and the Girl Who Came Back. I've actually heard some really good reviews about this. Otherwise, I've not heard much about it other than when everyone got this in that box. It looks like a little sweet and simple contemporary. Probably not the usual thing that I pick up, but hey ho, it was a blind date with the book essentially, so I am curious to see what the fuss is about, and yeah, it is a very small book, so we will see how that one goes. The next book is The Traitor by V.S. Alexander. This is about the like a retelling, a take on the White Rose, which is a resistance group during World War II, and I'm really excited to get into it. So it's historical fiction, and I have not heard very many things about it, but I feel like I never hear many things about historical fictions because not enough people are reading them, so I can't wait to pick this one up and see how it's going. It's set in 1942, so fingers crossed that this will be good. It's a fairly standard size book. The next book I have to share with you is one that I think sounds really interesting, and that is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This one is about fairies, or no, it's not fairies, it's magic and Regency London. No, I was right, there are fairies involved, and I believe that someone only has half a soul, and there's just gonna be lots of drama because how can you deal with a curse that means you have half a soul? I heard a couple of good things about this one, but I mostly am just really excited to get into it. I believe this was published last year, so it's a fairly recent release, so I'm curious to see how it goes. Again, quite a small book, so I am hoping that I will breeze through this one. The next book I have to share with you is another blind date with a book that came also in that same Burn the Wick Advent box. There were two blind dates in it, and that is Letters from the Past by Erica James. Again, not a genre I'd usually reach for, but one I've been reaching for a little bit more than perhaps contemporary. This is like historical, it's not historical fiction. I think it's just set in the 60s, and I think it's sort of like a saga, family saga potentially. It sounds like there are letters that are given to certain characters in this book that reveal some big secrets and sort of turn everyone's lives on their head. So it's quite a decent and hefty book. We're looking at nearly 500 pages. I actually am anticipating that this is going to be really fun to read. I think it will just be a light sort of bit of a family saga scandal. That is what I'm anticipating from this one. The next book I have to share with you, I'm super excited for. I've not heard anyone talk about it, and that is Asperfel by Jamie Thomas. I think that this is going to be fantastic. This one, the beginning of the blurb for this one says, "Only the darkest and most dangerous of mages are sentenced to pass through the gate of Asperfel. Not one has returned." So I'm assuming this will be about a mage that goes through this supposed gate for whatever reason, and I'm really looking forward to it. I just think that this sounds like it's going to be so much fun. It is a YA fantasy, and it is a pretty decent book. It's just over 400 pages long, so fingers crossed that this lives up to expectations. The next book I got at a book swap with my friends from my local Bookstagram group. We did a little catch up and we all brought a book along and did a swap, and I managed to land a romance. I got a book called The Perfect Match by Kristen Higgins. I actually am looking forward to reading this because I think it's going to be a nice break from every other book, and I don't read that many romances, but I pretty much enjoy them every time I do because they're just so easy and simple and light going. So the tagline for this one is, "What if the perfect match is a perfect surprise?" So I don't think there's going to be any groundbreaking stuff in this one, but I'm anticipating I'm going to enjoy it, and it has a purple spine, so that is always a good thing. The next book is one that I picked up at the bookstore. I can't even remember why I went to the bookstore, but I did, and that was actually the sequel to The Harp of Kings. So this is called A Dance with Fate by Juliet Marilia. I picked this up for one reason and one reason only, because I haven't actually read book one yet, but this was actually a signed copy. So got her little signature scribbled just in there, and I am anticipating... Whoa, she's written so many books. Look at that. That is a full page of books by her. I had no idea she'd written so many. There you go. I'm actually really looking forward to reading this one. It's sort of like a Celtic fantasy. I'm glad I've got book 2 because I hopefully can just read them back to back at some point, but we will see when it gets picked out of the TBR jar as to when that happens. But I couldn't walk past the sign that said it was a signed copy, especially as it was the only one in all of the editions of this in the bookstore on that day that was signed. So what can I say? The next book I got is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I've seen so many people read and love this book. This has been really popular over the last couple of years, so I'm really, really looking forward to reading it. It sounds like it's a sci-fi book where there's people on a mission on a spaceship that's like not top-notch, and there's a whole mix of species and personalities on board it. So I'm very curious how this is going to go because I believe this is actually a trilogy, so I am really, really looking forward to picking it up. The next book is one that I picked with a voucher that I was given at Christmas, and that is Philippa Gregory's Tidelands. I have been really wanting to read Philippa Gregory's stuff. She's sort of one of those staple historical fiction authors that has a slew of works out there, and I really want to jump on board with it. There's also Con Eagledon and Bernard Cornwell. I really want to read all of their books as well, but I thought I would start with Philippa Gregory because for whatever reason I just feel like, I don't know, it was because she's female, I'm not gonna lie. I picked a female author and I'm really excited. I didn't really know how to start and which ones to start with, so I just picked literally the only one that my bookstore had in stock, and that was Tidelands, so I'm looking forward to that. It's set in the 17th century. All of her books that seem to be set between the 15th to 17th centuries, so I am looking forward to learning a little bit more about this era of history. It's usually set in England. Yes, in England again, so the UK, and there's lots of UK history that I don't know, so I'm looking forward to this. The next book I got was Legendborn by Tracy Dion. I am really, really looking forward to reading this one because there was so much hype around this. This really sort of exploded with the Black Lives Matter movement naturally, and I just have heard endless good things ever since then. This one has a main character whose mother dies when she's young. It's got a tagline that says some legacies are meant to be broken, and I believe it is a fantasy, so magic, mages. I'm really, really looking forward to diving into this one. The next book I've had is one I've had my eye on for ages, and that is A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. This one is like a Sherlock Holmes retelling, essentially. The main character is called Jamie Watson, and she's at a school, and she's the great-great-great-granddaughter to the famous detective of Sherlock. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize it was actually directly related. So I'm hoping that this is just going to be a bit of a fun murder mystery or something along those lines. Fingers crossed. The next book that I got is The Damned, which is the sequel to The Beautiful. I absolutely loved reading The Beautiful by Renee Ardier last year. That really surprised me because it is a vampire book, and I am thrilled to have the sequel. I cannot wait to pick it up. I was just blown away by how thrilling that story was, so I'm hoping the book 2 is going to continue, and maybe with a little bit of a sizzling romance thrown in there would make me really happy too. The next book is another sequel, and that is Daughter to the Siren Queen. So this is the sequel to Daughter of the Pirate King, which I adored. That is all about a female lead pirate who is super strong, super sassy, but still really feminine, and I love that. She's my favorite character, so I'm really, really excited to see where this series goes. This is just a duology, so I am thrilled to have this in my hands and continue the adventure. The next book I have is Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Bayron. Kaylin Bayron has written a couple of other books that have done really well as well, I do believe, and this came out last year. I will read you the blurb for this one if you're not aware of it, because I think this one sounds really great and it's got to be one of the most hyped books out there at the moment. So it's 200 years since Cinderella found her prince, but the fairy tale is over. Sophia knows the story though off by heart because every girl has to recite it daily from when she's tiny until the night she's sent to the royal ball for choosing. And every girl knows that she has only one chance, for the lives of those not chosen by a man at the ball are forfeit. But Sophia doesn't want to be chosen. She doesn't want to go to the ball at all, not when she's afraid the girl she loves might be chosen too. Pushed beyond breaking by a society that denies everything she is, Sophia sets out on a journey that will remake her world into the one where she gets to choose. I just think this sounds incredible. I think I need not say more. You probably are going to go right along and buy yourself a copy of this book, and you should. The next book in the first pile, we're like halfway through, is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. Super excited to have a Colleen Hoover in my hands. If you've been following me, then you'll know that one of my goals for 2021 is to read all of Colleen Hoover's books, but with like a small caveat to say like as many as I can actually feasibly do, because she does have quite a lot of books. Might be a goal that takes a couple of years, but I'm really excited to read this. So I'll probably be reading this in February because it is the only Colleen Hoover book that I own and have not read, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. Colleen Hoover usually writes sort of a thriller romance. They're usually quite dramatic and heavy hitting, so I would recommend, if you're interested in her as an author, just go and have a look on Goodreads at all the books she does. My personal favourites are It Ends With Us and Verity, but she has just so many amazing books, so go and check them all out. The next book I have is The Blazeroth Games by Amparo Ortiz, and I am so excited to have this one. I had my eye on this book since it was announced and released last year because it is about dragons, and we all know that I love my dragons, though I don't read nearly enough dragon books. This is like advertised as, is it on here? This is advertised as, I think, How to Train Your Dragon meets Quidditch Through the Ages. I believe that was the official tagline, and I was so sold on that basis because I love How to Train Your Dragon beyond belief, and if you're gonna put it together with a Quidditch match, then that sounds like wicked fun. So I have really high expectations about this tournament and how it's gonna go down. I will read you the blurb because I'm really excited about this one. So it's Lana Torres has always preferred dragons to people. In a few weeks, 16 countries will compete in the Blazeroth World Cup, a tournament where dragons and their riders fight for glory in a dangerous relay. Lana longs to represent her native Puerto Rico in the first ever World Cup appearance, but when Puerto Rico's runner, the only player without a dragon steed, is kicked off the team, she's given the chance. But when she discovers that a former Blazeroth superstar has teamed up with the Sire, a legendary dragon who's cursed into taking a human form, the safety of the cup is jeopardized. The pair are burning down dragon sanctuaries around the world and refuse to stop until the cup gets cancelled. All Lana wanted to do was represent her country. Now, to do that, she'll have to navigate an international conspiracy that's deadlier than her beloved sport. I just think it sounds ridiculous and glorious. I can't wait to read it. The next book I have is a middle grade Beauty and the Beast retelling called Angel and Bivar by Amy Wilson. I'm really excited to read this one. I think it's going to be really, really exciting. I just think the little excerpt on the back of this one says, I saw them in the skies, in the corner of my eyes, darkness shadows creeping close, and the boy stood alone afraid. I told him he could fight them all. He knew it. He was 10 feet tall, magic in his veins and power in his blood. He was afraid of himself. I just think this is going to be haunting and a little bit dark, and I am just loving my Beauty and the Beast retellings at the moment. The next book was a Christmas present from my wonderful friend Sarah, who loved this book, and it's called Lovely War by Julie Berry. Now this one looks like your standard like World War II sort of historical fiction, but it's actually got gods and monsters in it, so I shall read you the blurb for this one as well. A sweeping, multi-layered romance set in the perilous days of World War I and World War II, where gods hold the fates and the hearts of 4 mortals in their hands. They are Hazel, James, Aubrey and Colette, a classical pianist from London, a British would-be architect turned soldier, a Harlem-born ragtime genius in the US Army, and a Belgian orphan with a gorgeous voice and a devastating past. Their story, as told by the goddess Aphrodite, who must spin the tale or face judgment on Mount Olympus, is filled with hope and heartbreak, prejudice and passion, and reveals that though war is a formidable force, it's no match for the transcendent power of love. I just think this sounds awesome. I love that there's this Greek mythology sort of just like seasoned up like a good shake of pepper over the story. I think it's just going to be fantastic and I can't wait. Plus, I've heard good reviews from close friends, so that means I'm bound to love it. The next book I have for you is one that I have had on my wish list for I think about 10 years, and I don't think that's an exaggeration, and that is Pennies for Hitler by Jackie French. Jackie French is a good author and I'm really excited. This is actually a companion story to another book which I don't know much about, but basically it's set in 1939 and it's the son of an English academic living in Germany, and it is his story about being a child growing up in Nazi Germany, and I am a sucker for these stories, so I cannot wait to pick it up. Carrying on with the theme of World War II, I then have Daughters of the Night Sky by Amy K. Runyon. I think that this is going to be really good. I love the cover for this one. So this one is all about female pilots. It's set in Russia in 1941. It follows a character called Katya? I'm actually not entirely sure how you say that name. Basically, she's a pilot. And I think she'll be fighting in the war and all sorts of interesting things thrown into the mix, probably about being a woman and fighting for the war. So I have high hopes that this is going to be brilliant. We then move on to another book that I got in a blind date with a book in another advent box that I got. This one is for Read and Relax. Again, details down below. And this one is called The End of the World is Bigger Than Love by Davina Bell. I've never heard of this before. It doesn't have the best reviews on Goodreads, but I am holding out hope that it'll be like a nice, simple, quick read. I will read you the blurb for this one because I do think it sounds interesting. So identical twin sisters, summer and winter, live alone on a remote island, sheltered from the fallout of a mysterious event that has laid waste to the rest of the world. I think that's all I sort of need to know, that it sounds like it's going to be really interesting. So we will see how this one goes down. The next book I'm super excited about because this one is set in Syria in 2011 and it is called The Map of Salt and Stars by Jennifer Zainab Jakada. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, probably not. But this one, yes, set in 2011, the peace of the Syrian city of Homs is disturbed by protest and shelling. A young girl, Noor, flees from Levant and North Africa in search of safety. 800 years before, Rawia, disguised as a boy and apprenticed to a famous mapmaker, set out on an epic quest to chart the globe, following the very same route. So I think this is going to be flipping back and forth between the two perspectives. I love this. This is another area, an era of history that I would like to learn more about, and I love it when I can find an interesting historical fiction that can teach me these things. The next few books, the next 7 books, are part of a series, and I actually got these for free, so it's not quite as horrific as it seems. And that is the complete Tomorrow When the War Began series, and these little dingy Australian copies of them. I've never read this, and one of my good friends had these copies going because she got herself a more recent edition of them that look a little bit prettier, so she gave me this one, and I am really excited to have the complete set. I'm in no hurry to read these, but I do want to read them one day because I know that loads and loads of people love these. This is basically an Australian classic, so I'm really excited to have the full series. We're nearly there. So the next book I want to talk about is the audiobook that I got in December, and that was A Promised Land by Barack Obama. I decided that I really wanted to have a listen to this one, though I may not be American. My dad recently read Michelle Obama's memoirs and was raving about them, so I thought that I would give Barack's a go because he narrates it himself, and I think it will be interesting. It's a really long book. It's really chunky if you've seen it in the stores, and it's about 30 hours on audiobook, which is actually pretty decent. So I will be reading that relatively soon, and I'm curious about what he has to say. The next book I have is another gift from a friend, and I am so excited to have this one. That is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I have heard endless good things about this one. This is obviously about mythology. So if you don't know what this one is, it is about Piranesi. So Piranesi lives in the house, perhaps he always has. In his notebooks, day after day, he makes a clear and careful record of its wonders. The labyrinth of halls, the thousands upon thousands of statues, the tides that thunder up staircases, the clouds that move in slow procession through the upper halls. On Tuesdays and Fridays, Piranesi sees his friend, the other, and other times he brings tributes of food and water lilies to the dead, but mostly he's alone. Messages begin to appear, scratched out in the chalk on pavements. There is someone new in the house, but who are they and what do they want? Are they a friend, or do they bring destruction and madness, as the other claims? Lost texts must be found, secrets must be uncovered. The world that Piranesi thought he knew is becoming strange and dangerous. I have just heard so many good things, so I cannot wait to read this. So that brings me to the final book, providing I remembered all the books correctly, because let's be honest, there was a lot of books that I got for Christmas, and it is an absolute behemoth, and that is Charles Dickens' The Five Novels. So this was actually a Christmas present from my brother, and I love it. It is absolutely humongous. It's a Barnes & Noble edition, and it's massive. It's even bigger than the usual ones, which you can't quite see, it's just on top of my bookshelf. So this one in it has Oliver Twist, A Tale of Two Cities, David Copperfield, A Christmas Carol, and Great Expectations, and I have every intention of reading them. I do have other editions of a few of these, so when they get pulled out of my TBR jar, I will pick the other edition if I have one, just because it's probably going to be more manageable to carry around than this absolute beast, but I think that this is just absolutely stunning and I am thrilled with it. So those are all the books that I got in December, an absolutely ridiculous book haul, but I hope you enjoyed going through that with me. I can't wait to read them, and I can't wait to see which ones come up in my TBR jars throughout the year. I am so excited to be pulling a TBR jar for February. That will be happening very soon because I didn't get to do one for January, and I didn't get to do one, or I did a special one for December. So I'm looking forward to going back to normal routines but picking out from the TBR jar. So let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of these or if any of these are on your TBR, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye. Alle gloria militar.